All right, good afternoon, everybody. This is Mr. Shua, and I'm showing you this video on how to do the math homework, which was assigned in DeltaMath. Okay, I'm going to walk you through step by step. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to go to deltamath.com/students, and we'll hit this orange register button, put the class code in. You should have the class code. Then class, select whichever one of the classes you're in. And then once it does that, where it says register with Google, we'll register with Google. That should bring you into DeltaMath. And you should notice here that I've updated the due date for this algebra skills homework. Let's just jump into it and see what we have here. Okay, let's look at our first question here. It says solve for z, and we have 4z plus 1 equals 41. Okay, and let's see what we want to do here. We want to go to our DeltaMath homework here, and let me show you the steps. So for question number 1, 4z plus 1 equals 41. Of course, to get rid of 1, remember, we want to have all of our constants, all of our numbers on one side, and all of our variables, our letters on one side, and we're solving for the variable. So here, I'm going to subtract 1, both sides of the equation. When I do that, you should see that the positive 1 and negative 1 are going to cancel out, leave me just 4z on the left side. When I do 41 minus 1, that's going to leave me 40 on the right side. So then I'm at 4z minus 40. Again, I want to solve for z, so I'm going to divide both sides by 4. I divide by 4 here. The 4's will cancel out, leave me just a z on the left side. When I do 40 divided by 4, that's 10. Z equals 10. So that's the answer for question 1. So then I go back to my DeltaMath, and I'm going to put in z equals 10. Submit answer. Are you sure you want to submit this answer? Yes. Okay, so that is the first, and it says it's correct. Oh, look, and it did the exact same thing that I just did here. I didn't even know they were doing that. Okay, let's take a look at question 2. So it says solve for y, negative 6y minus 31 equals 5. All right, so here's the question here. So we need to solve for y. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to add 31, both sides of the equation. The negative 31 and the positive 31, they're going to cancel each other out. And you're going to have just the negative 6y left on the left side. If we add 5 plus 31 on the right side, we're going to have 36. So we're at negative 6y equals 36. Then we're going to divide both sides by negative 6. You always divide by whatever number is in front of the variable. So if we divide by negative 6, both of these negative 6's are going to cancel each other out. That just leaves us the y on the left side. Then 36 divided by negative 6, our answer is negative 6. Y equals negative 6. Go back to DeltaMath, y equals negative 6. Submit this answer. Are you sure you want to submit this answer? Yes. And it says it's correct. And you see, DeltaMath did the same thing that I did here. The exact same thing. Okay, everybody, let's take a look at question 3. Solve for x. 2 equals 4x minus 6, parentheses, x plus 1. Okay, so here we are here. Now, we have this negative 6 next to this parentheses. Anytime you have a number outside of a parentheses, we're going to use the distributive property, and we're going to distribute that number to the parentheses. So the negative 6 is going to multiply the x. The negative 6 is going to multiply the 1. So our next line should be 2 equals 4x minus 6x, negative 6 times x, minus 6x, and then negative 6 times 1 is negative 6. So 2 equals 4x minus 6x minus 6. Our next line after that, we're going to combine like terms here. We see a 4x and a minus 6x. If we combine those like terms, that's going to give us a negative 2x. So our next line is going to be 2 equals negative 2x minus 6. So that's where we are there. After that, we're going to add 6 to both sides because we want to have the x by itself. So I'm going to add 6 on the right. I'm going to add 6 on the left. If I add 6 here, 2 plus 6 gives me 8. Here, the negative 6 and the positive 6 cancel out and leave me just the negative 2x here. So right now we're at 8 equals negative 2x. Then, to get the x by itself, I'm simply going to divide by negative 2 on the right, divide by negative 2 on the left. 8 divided by negative 2 is negative 4. These negative 2's cancel each other out, and negative 4 equals x. So that's the answer we're going to place in DeltaMath. 8x equals negative 4. Submit the answer. Yes. It says correct. And I see DeltaMath goes through the same steps that I go through. Okay, let's take a look at question 4. So it says solve for x, negative 10x minus parentheses 9x plus 6 equals 3 plus x. Okay, so here's the question. Now, notice we have a minus sign or negative sign outside of parentheses. Anytime you have a negative sign outside of a parentheses, treat that minus sign as if it is a negative 1 and distribute it to the parentheses. So, what you're going to do, we bring down that negative 10x, we take that minus sign, make it into a negative 1, and we're going to distribute it to this parentheses equals 3 plus x. So our next line is going to say 10x, negative 1 times 9x gives me a negative 9x. Negative 1 times a positive 6 will give me a negative 6 equals 3 plus x. So that's where we're at after those two steps. Now our next steps, we're going to combine like terms here. We're going to combine the negative 10x along with the negative 9x. That's going to give us a negative 19x here. So we're going to have negative 19x minus 6 equals 3 plus x. All right? Then what we want to do, since we want to solve for x, we want to make sure that the x's are on one side of the equation, make sure our numbers are on the opposite side of the equation. So since this is a negative, I'm going to make it positive. I'm going to add 19x on both sides of the equation. So adding a negative 19x with a positive 19x, they're going to cancel each other out and leave me the negative 6 on the left side. Here, if I add the positive 1x with the positive 19x, I now have a positive 20x on the right. So it says negative 6 equals 3 plus 20x. Now, we want to make sure that the x is by itself. So I'm going to subtract 3 on both sides of the equation. Subtract 3 here, subtract 3 here. So negative 6 minus 3 gives me a negative 9. The 3 minus 3 cancels each other out, leaves me 20x. Okay? So now we're at negative 9 equals 20x. All right, then to solve for our x and get the x by itself, I'm going to divide both sides by 20. I'm going to divide by 20 on the right, divide by 20 on the left, and when I do that, negative 9/20 equals x, because these 20s cancel out. So in this particular case, we're getting a fraction as our answer. So let's put that into DeltaMath and see if it likes the answer that we came up with. X equals, let me use this virtual keyboard here. So negative 9 divided by 20. Negative 9 over 20. And I'm going to submit that answer. Are you sure? Yes. And they say it's correct. And you see DeltaMath also shows the same steps. Oh, they put it in decimal form. So 9/20 is negative 0.45 in decimal, but they accepted my answer of 9/20. So I would leave it at 9/20 unless the question specifically says place it into decimal form. But it looks like DeltaMath accepts both answers. Okay, let's take a look at question 5 here. It says solve for x in its simplest form. And it says 3 equals 5 halves, open parentheses, 3x minus 2, close parentheses. Okay, so here's the question. So we notice we have a fraction here, which is next to a parentheses. So what we're going to do is take this fraction and distribute it to everything inside the parentheses. So our next line is going to be 3 equals 5 halves times 3x, the first part. Bring down the minus sign. Then it's 5 halves times 2, which we have right here in this next line. Now, we'll simply perform the multiplication. So 3 equals, if I multiply the numerators, 5 times 3 is 15. 2 times 1 is just 2. And then we have our x, so that's just 15 halves x for this one. Bring down the minus sign. Now you should notice here with the 5 halves times 2, I have a 2 in the denominator, I have a 2 in the numerator. I can simply cancel both the numerator and denominator 2, and it just leaves me 5. So our next line is simply 3 equals 15 halves x minus 5. Okay, hopefully everybody's with me there. Let's continue on. So now we want to solve for the x. So I want to get rid of the 5 on the both sides of the equation. So I'm going to add 5 here. I'm going to add 5 here. When I add 3 plus 5 on the left, I get 8. This negative 5 and this positive 5 are going to cancel each other out and just leave me the 15 halves x. So our next line is 15 halves x here. Okay? Stay with me now. So we want to solve for x. Now we notice we have a fraction in front of the x. We just don't have just a regular integer. What we can do in order to get this x by itself is multiply by the reciprocal of this fraction. The reciprocal means the opposite or the flip of the fraction. So what I can do is take this 15 halves x and take this fraction, flip it, and multiply it by 2/15 on both sides of the equation. Now, what happens when I multiply 15 halves times 2/15? Well, I can cancel the numerator 15, denominator 15. I can cancel the numerator 2, the denominator 2. So those both cancel out, just leaving me the x on the left side. Here, on the left side here, I just multiply the numerators. 2 times 8 is 16. 15 times 1 is 15. So we have 16/15 as an answer. So that's the answer I'm going to place in the DeltaMath. Let's see if it likes my answer. So, let's see. I'm going to do 16 divided by 15. Submit. You want to submit that answer? Yes. And it says it's correct. Okay. Oh, wow. I didn't even know DeltaMath was doing the exact same thing I was doing. And yep, and there it is. So DeltaMath got the exact same thing I got. Okay, let's take a look at question 7. So it says, given f of x equals 3x squared minus 4x minus 8, find f of negative 7. So this is similar to the last question that we worked on. All right, so again, anytime you see f of some number, what that means is take whatever this number is and wherever you see an x, substitute that number in for the x. So f of negative 7 will be 3 times negative 7 squared minus 4 times negative 7 minus 8. Okay, we substituted in the negative 7 wherever we saw an x. Now, the next line, f of negative 7 equals 3 times, now, negative 7 squared. Negative 7 times negative 7 is a positive 49. So that will be 3 times 49. Minus 4 times negative 7 minus 8. All right, we come down to our next line. f of negative 7, we do the 3 times 49. 3 times 49 is 147. Okay, minus 4 times negative 7, minus 8. We come down to our next line. F of negative 7 is 147. Now we take this negative 4, we multiply it by the negative 7, which gives us a positive 28. So that's 147 plus 28 minus 8. We come down to our next line. F of negative 7, we add these two together. 147 plus 28 is 175 minus 8. And then our last line, we do 175 minus 8. F of negative 7 comes to 167. That's the answer we get. Let's plug that into DeltaMath and see if it likes that answer. 167. Yes, correct. Oh, and you see, DeltaMath basically did the same steps that I did here. Okay, then now we're on to question 8. So this says express as a trinomial. And we have two binomials here, 2x minus 3 times 3x minus 5. All right, so anytime we have a binomial, which is a two-term polynomial, multiplied by another binomial, two-term polynomial, we can use a process called FOIL, F-O-I-L. And FOIL stands for first, outer, inner, last. And the FOIL method is a way that we use to multiply binomials, and let me show you how it's applied. If we start with the F, F stands for first. We're going to multiply the first term in this binomial times the first term in this binomial. 2x times 3x. 2 times 3 is 6. X times x is x squared, so we get 6x squared. That's our first term. Oh, outer. We're going to multiply the outer term in this binomial by the outer term in this binomial. 2x times negative 5. 2 times negative 5 is a negative 10, and then x here, so we have a negative 10x. All right? Then we're going to go to I, inner. We're going to multiply the negative 3, which is the inner term here, with the 3x, which is the inner term here in this binomial. Negative 3 times 3 is a negative 9. Then we bring the x over. That's a negative 9x. Then finally we have L, the last terms. We're going to multiply this negative 3, which is the last term in this binomial, times negative 5, which is the last term in this binomial. Negative 3 times negative 5 gives you a positive 15. So if we put all of these terms together, we have 6x squared minus 10x minus 9x plus 15. And then all we have left after that is to combine our like terms. We combine our negative 10x with the negative 9x. We have 6x squared minus 19x plus 15. We're going to plug this into DeltaMath and see if it likes our answer. So pull up the virtual keyboard. So 6x squared minus 19x plus 15. Submit answer, yes. And DeltaMath, excuse me. Yep, DeltaMath gives it. Oh, they don't go in. Okay, show the box tabular method. Okay, they did the box method here. The box method is also a method that works well. Some of you may have been taught the box method previously. You take the first binomial, 2x minus 3, times the second binomial, 3x minus 5. One binomial goes down the left side, the other binomial goes on the top, and then you do 2x times 3x, 6x squared, 2x times negative 5, negative 10x, and then we do negative 3 times 3x is negative 9x, and then negative 3 times negative 5 is a positive 15. Then if we take the negative 10x and the negative 9x, we get the negative 19x. So therefore 6x squared minus 19x plus 15. Oh, it says right there, combine negative 10x and negative 9x. So our, oh, and it even says FOIL. Wow, DeltaMath does a lot of the same things that I do. So that is our answer. All right, let's take a look at question 9. Question 9 says factor. And it says they want us to factor x squared plus 3x minus 28. This is a trinomial because it has 1, 2, 3 parts. Factoring a trinomial. Now remember, in our last question, they wanted us to FOIL two binomials, basically multiply a binomial times a binomial, and we get a trinomial. Well, factoring is the opposite of foiling because factoring is I have the trinomial and I want you to break it down into two binomials. Okay? So, here's how we're going to do that. Look at the last term in the binomial here, right? And you see it says negative 28, right? Right? So what we want to do is we want to find numbers or factors of 28, this last term, that add up to the middle term of 3. So if I go through 28, what factors, what two numbers multiply to 28? Well, 28 and 1, of course, 14 and 2, and 7 and 4. So those are the factors of 28. Now, out of these three factors, which pair of factors could I add together and get a positive 3? Well, it should be kind of obvious to see here. If I multiply the 7 times a negative 4, that would give me a negative 28. If I add the 7 with the negative 4, that would give me a positive 3. So for factoring for the binomials, I'm going to have an x plus 7 times an x minus 4 because we have 7 and negative 4 as the binomial. So this is what I'm going to enter into DeltaMath. So I'm going to enter x plus 7 times x minus 4. Got too many parentheses here. So, x plus 7 times x minus 4. I'm going to submit my answer. And it's correct. I see DeltaMath here. Oh, they're doing that crisscross tree. Some teachers do it this way. I personally don't do it. But if it works for you, here, so what they're doing is basically taking the negative 28 and the positive 3. It's similar. They're just trying to figure out, well, what two numbers are going to multiply to negative 28, which is the negative 4 and the 7, and also add to positive 3, which is also the negative 4 and 7. So DeltaMath just doing it a different way, but we still get the same result. All right, I think we have one more question here. Let's move on. Okay, now we're up to question 10. It says, factor the trinomial 5x squared plus 41x plus 42. Now, I'm going to admit to you, I don't expect most of you to know how to do this at this point. Factoring trinomials when the coefficient is greater than 1 is actually something we're going to be covering later on in the semester. So if you don't know it right now, don't worry too much. But for the purposes of completing your DeltaMath homework, just follow along with the steps that I'm about to show you, okay? So, there are many different ways to factor trinomials. What I'm going to do right now is show you a method called the AC method, okay? And this is how the AC method works. You take the first term in your trinomial, that's going to be your A. In this case, it's the 5. You're going to take that second term in your trinomial, which is going to be your B. In this case, it's going to be 41. Then you're going to take the third term in your trinomial, that's going to be your C. In this case, it's the 42. Now what you're going to do is multiply the A term times the C term, hence AC method, and you're going to find out what that product is. So 42 times 5x squared gives you 210x squared. All right. Now, again, I know this next part is a little bit tricky. Most of you haven't seen it. Don't worry about it. Again, just follow these steps, okay? Now, the next steps we're going to take, you're going to find factors of 210 and lay them out. We want to find all of the factors of 210, the a times the c, and find the factors which actually add up to the b term in the middle, the 41. So here I've laid out all of the factors of 210. 210 times 1, 105 times 2, 70 times 3, 42 times 5, 35 times 6, 30 times 7, 21 times 10, and 15 times 14. Now, out of all of these factors of 210, which two could I add together and get 41? Well, it should jump out at you that if I add the 35 and the 6 together, I would get 41 in the middle. So now that I know what these two terms are, I'm going to take this 3-term polynomial and I'm going to expand it into a 4-term polynomial. Again, just watch these steps, okay? So, what I do is I'm going to take the 5x squared, but instead of writing 41x, I'm going to split it into 2. 5x squared plus 35x plus 6x. Because if I add these two together, that indeed gives me 41x. I'm just expanding it into 2 terms, and then I bring down to 42. So now I've taken my 3-term polynomial, expanded it into 4 terms. Why would I do that? Well, there is a process which is called factor by grouping. What that basically means is now that this is 4 terms, I can take the first 2 terms and place them in a group. I can take the second 2 terms, place them in a group, and then I can factor each of those individual groups by themselves. Okay? So now, if I look at this 5x squared plus 35x, well, what can I factor out of here? Well, I can factor a 5 here. I can factor a 5 here. So I'll take out that 5. I can also factor out an x here and factor out an x here. So I have a 5x that I can factor out of both terms. Now what's left? If I take 5x out of 5x squared, I have an x left. And if I divide 35x by 5x, I have a 7. So I have x plus 7 after I factored out my 5x. Now, if I come over to the second group, what can I factor here? Well, I can take the 6 out of here, and I can take the 6 out of here. So I can take the positive 6 out of both terms. Now, if I divide positive 6 by positive 6, I just have my x left, which is an x here. Then if I divide 42 by 6, I have 7, so I have x plus 7. Now, it's important when you're using factor by grouping that both of these parentheses match. If these parentheses do not match, you did something wrong with your arithmetic. You need to go back and check. So now that these two match, the x plus 7s, we know that x plus 7 is one of the factors here. So I put x plus 7 as the first factor. Then the second factor, or the second binomial, is I take this term and I take this term and simply place them together, 5x plus 6. So the factoring of the trinomial 5x squared plus 41x plus 42 is x plus 7 times 5x plus 6. And if you were to FOIL this back, you would get this here. Okay, so let's put this in, x plus 7 and 5x plus 6. Okay, so we're going to do x plus 7, and then we're going to do 5x plus 6. Oh, and somehow, I don't know how I missed that 7. Right, and we have too many parentheses. Let me get rid of some of these. So here we have x plus 7 times 5x plus 6. Submit answer. Yep. Correct. Oh, you've completed the assignment. Awesome. And then factoring the trinomial, DeltaMath, they're showing you a way here. I'm not even going to get into it. We got the correct answer. You dismiss this. All right. So that's how now, when you go through and do this, uh, there's going to be, you're not going to get the exact same questions that I get because DeltaMath switches it up, makes it unique questions for everybody. But seeing how I did these, whenever you get similar questions, just follow the steps that I did and you'll be able to answer it. All right. So I hope you guys have a great weekend. Don't stress over this assignment. Watch how to do these steps. Complete it. Enjoy your Labor Day weekend. I'll see you guys next week. Have a good day. Okay, I want to add just one more question because I saw that several of you had a similar question to this one. So let me go through this one really quick. So this question says solve for y, and it says 21 equals 1/4 y plus 19. So we want to solve for this variable y. So we want to get it by itself. So the first thing I do is I would subtract 19 both sides of the equation. So here, the positive 19 and the negative 19, they're going to cancel each other out. And you're just going to leave you the 1/4 y on the right. Then 21 minus 19 leaves you 2 on the left. So we have 2 equals 1/4 y. So we want to solve for y, but we have a fraction in front of the variable. It's not a regular integer. So the way that we can get rid of this fraction is simply multiplied by the reciprocal of the fraction. The reciprocal or the flip of the fraction. So what we would do here for the 1/4, we would just flip it and multiply. It will be 4 over 1 or just simply 4. So we will multiply 1/4 times 4. And here's what we have here. The 1/4 is being multiplied by 4. Then the 4 in the numerator cancels, the 4 in the denominator cancels, and that just leaves you 1y, or just simply y. Since we multiplied by 4 on the right side, we're going to multiply by 4 on the left side. 4 times 2 is 8. Y equals 8. 8 equals y. Your solution, y equals 8. Okay, so that should pretty much cover all the different types of questions you should get on this DeltaMath here. You should be able to finish it now. If you still have questions, shoot me an email or text, or just see me next week. Enjoy your weekend. Have a good day, everybody.